What's up, everyone? Taiki here, and welcome to episode 16 of the Crypto Market Wizards podcast. Today, I have here with me Messi. How are you doing today?
There you go. What's up? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, so I don't think you need an intro, but for the first cyclers out there, can you just give us a brief intro of how you got into crypto and what you do now?
So I got into crypto in 2013. It was the latter part of 2013, I think in November or December. I created my Bitcoin Talk account in December, after kind of browsing and being a lurker on the forums for a little bit. Um, I was in college, I was dating an amazing woman who's now my wife. And I was just the biggest like fuck up. I was a huge partier. I loved smoking and drinking and, staying out all night, not going to class. But it kind of clicked for me because in like a year, my wife was going to be graduating college. And I started thinking to myself, like, man, like, like she's a party girl, like she loves partying with me and like having fun and stuff. But at a certain point in time, like she's going to look at me in a different light and she's going to think or not think I'm a loser. She's going to see me, for the loser that I am. Because, at a certain point, like she's going to want a higher quality of man. She's going to want somebody that's going to be able to provide for her and, for her family and that kind of stuff. So I was like, I really need to, like, I'm failing out of all my classes. Like, there's no fucking way I'm going to graduate. But basically, like, I just started thinking to myself, like, you got to make something of yourself and you got to prove to this woman that, you're worth keeping around. Because I knew she was the one and I wanted to be there and show her the best version of myself. So I actually start Googling like how to start online businesses and stuff and like doing research into, because the internet it wasn't necessarily young. I mean, this was a long time ago. But it was young enough to where there was a lot of opportunity out there. And I was like, I'm a smart guy. I can, figure something out. And then I came across something called Dogecoin. And I was like, wait a minute, like you're telling me, like I've always been a gamer my entire life. I built, I think, 5 or 6 gaming PCs now. Had a gaming PC back then. It was an all-star build for me. Of course, it was built on budget equipment. Like I had a ATI Radeon 7850. I had dual, which was pretty cool back then. This is back in the day where ATI was like the GPU king. Nvidia sucked. If you're a gamer, if you're a miner, a spec miner, which is how I got my start in crypto, you wanted to be on ATI GPUs. But, I found out that I could just like mine these coins, um, and make money. So, I got in my head, like, I'm going to start scaling up my operation. Cause back then, even on my setup, you could mine about a Bitcoin worth of stuff, every week or two, if you played your cards right. So I was like, I'm going to get into this spec mining game. I'm going to mine Dogecoin, WorldCoin. There was all these different like plays back then. Earthcoin. Uh, the amount of shit that we got into was ridiculous. But if I can kind of scale up my operation here and just kind of buy more GPUs, I can turn this into business. And it sounded ridiculous, but it was something that I was just really engaged with and really interested in at the time. So kind of the workflow there was back then there was no crypto Twitter or anything like that. Everything happened on Bitcoin Talk forums. And there was an announcement section for new launches and stuff. So basically you had to just keep your eye on the forums and you had to wait for these new mining plays to come up. And it paid to be fast and it paid to be early. Shout out to the absolute legends of that era. It was Shadowrunner BTC, who somehow, some way was just about the like first person to spec mine anything. And also not so fast, who's still around today. Maybe Shadowrunner is too under another alias. Um, those guys were like, they were absolute legends. Not so fast, of course, still is in his own way. So, I just started doing that and the rest fell into place. I never at that point in time, like thought that, this would end up being my life or end up being my profession or, that I'd end up being, somebody that people looked up to in the space, or at least some people, uh, but here I am. The interesting thing is, kind of after that, of course, I'm a fucking gambler. Like, I ditched my entire plan and I was just like, I need to start learning how to chart and how to trade because that's where the real money is. And I had that realization after seeing on Twitter guys like This Is Noose, who's still around today. Dre for You, who's still around today, actually. These guys were just posting these wacky, charts, like, which now I look at it and it's like, a second language. But back then, I was like, these guys are posting this crazy shit on Twitter and they always seem to know what's going to pump. Because as a total noob, like if you don't understand anything about charts, and like I still remember this, like you don't understand like what precedes the pump. You're just like frantically trying to be in the next thing that pumps. And of course, I paid my tuition, which basically means I'm waiting for some guy on Twitter to talk about something. He talks about it. I look at the chart, it's up. I'm like, yo, I got to get in right now. Like, holy, this thing's pumping, You buy it, of course you buy in the top. Like we've all been there. We've all like, I think participated in that kind of cycle. So I eventually start trying to learn how to trade for myself, which brings us to like 2015 era where I met this guy, Sebastian Shepis, who is one of the founders of Syscoin, actually. Big throwback. That thing's been around forever.
Yeah.
And Sebastian and I start thinking to ourselves, like, this is like at the early phases of trading. And we start thinking to ourselves, hey, like, we should be able to cook up some kind of super indicator that will tell us, there's 80 public indicators at the time. Of course, the greats, what's his name, Lazy Bear, I think, Richard Santos, were the guys putting out a lot of the public stuff and public code. But we were like, we can, throw together some logic and a bunch of these indicators and kind of create a system, to where we could easy mode and we can catch all these pumps. Um, so we built all of this code and all of this software and all of these early iteration kind of trading suites together. And we were in the trenches together and we kind of learned how to trade together. Of course, the conclusion of all that was that indicators are garbage. We spent hundreds of hours like building all this bullshit that, didn't really help give us any edge or alpha at all. And that's just when I kind of started learning how to trade. Of course, now I always recommend people like, hey, if I'd been smarter, or maybe if this is available at the time, if I'd known about it, I just would have gone to Baby Pips. They've got a really good Forex course. Trading is kind of a universal language. If you can trade crypto, you can trade Forex, you can trade stocks. Of course, everything kind of has its own personality. But TA, like at its core, is a universal language. So I just started learning how to trade through trial and error. It took me a long time. But I really, really got deep into fundamental research too around that time. Because, up until around that time, maybe 2016, the projects weren't all that interesting. You're looking at basically like, hey, here's a new version of Litecoin, and this one has a different hashing algorithm. Like, this is so innovative. This is going to change the world. If you look at how goofy something like Earthcoin or Mooncoin was, and this is like when I was just getting into crypto, the mining emission schedules and halvings were like based around moon cycles, and that was revolutionary. Like you look at something like that today, and you're like, that is the biggest fucking garbage like I've ever heard of. Like, what are you talking about? Um, so around 2016, I was deep in kind of the fundamental era, and I wanted to have my big moment. And I found this thing, of course, I was still spec mining back then. And I found this thing called Decred on Bitcoin Talk. And I remember it was like the most robust, like extreme announcement, OP, original post that I'd ever seen in my entire life. So I was like, holy shit, like I need to be early in this. I need to be a part of this, like this is the next Bitcoin. That was still like a big theme back then. Everybody was still trying to like be the next Bitcoin. This is Bitcoin, but better. This is Bitcoin built on better technology. And the guys that built it had this kind of credibility rapport because they had worked on specific clients for Bitcoin. They built Bitcoin libraries. So they had this kind of respect that, while this may be a shit coin, this isn't necessarily like a shit coiner. That whole like, you're a dirty shit coiner thing has been around for a long time.
Mhm.
Right. Of course, it's gotten worse and worse. But, they did have this kind of clout. So I had taken almost everything that I'd made up until that point, which, was not a lot of money. And I just started buying Decred. Decred's $5 million market cap. Decred dumps, freaking from the start to the end of 2016, a solid 80%. I'm looking at myself. I'm like, dude, fuck, you're the biggest failure ever. You know, I can't believe you went all in on this. You're a fucking idiot. You know, you go in the Discord, and it's just guys like nerding out all day on shit no one cares about. They have no kind of social presence.
It's like the
Um,
Discord community, right? It's just like, this
it's
token's down 90%, you join the Discord and everyone's
Dude,
coping together.
everyone's coping together, everyone's wojacking. The devs are like, "Yeah, but look at this code we wrote." And everybody's like, "Fuck y'all, like, you know, we need to get some marketing, like, going here. Like, we need to get some
Yeah.
we need to start building a community of people, of users, because you guys have done a really, really good job of capturing the minds and hearts of developers and really technically minded people, but, like, you don't have any normal people that give a shit about this." So it turns out that, Coin Artist was a big Decred bag holder too. And, you know, we were all like kind of rallying and the community together. We're like, you know, hey, let us grow the community, give us the tools to grow the community, let us run the socials, um, let us manage the community. We'll manage the Discord, we'll grow the socials, we'll make content, all that kind of stuff. You know, I started doing a little Decred podcast back then. That was the first time I was face docs, which, you know, of course I was really nervous about at the time. Because I come from a different era. You know, I come from the era where your, you know, OPSEC was a really big deal. Like, you know, people wanted that anonymity. You know, people really don't care about it so much now. Um, and I still, you know, do carry like pieces of that era, you know, even to this day. You know, and I try to be careful about, you know, people these days are just giving their fucking phone number to anybody and they meet in crypto. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm not giving you my phone number. Like, you crazy? Like, even if I know you, I'm probably not gonna give you my phone number, like, just because that's
Yeah.
an OPSEC breach.
E
Um,
even like
yeah,
Ansem, right? Like, people have been writing threads
that's
on
crazy.
Ansem's story, like,
Yeah,
and
his
he
phone number
like,
leaked.
and, like, they have his childhood photos and all that. So it seems like you've been through
Yeah.
multiple cycles. I mean, you know,
I
2013,
mean,
you started mining and then just
D
speculating on
Decred
stuff.
Decred was like my come up, and that's why I just kinda spent so much time in the story. You know,
Yeah.
2017 hits, and of course, every single cycle, you know, I've heard the same thing since 2013, and that is, there's no way in hell that this cycle is gonna be as crazy as the last one. That was the last alt season ever, you know, and I don't know if that's
Yeah, yeah,
Bitcoin
yeah.
maximalist propaganda or what, you know, but it's been said every time. And it was said in 2016, when Coin Artist and I like kind of took over this community. I was kind of like thinking to myself, you know, like, fuck it, like, you're a fucking idiot. Like, I was going back to school at that point, computer science degree. I was like, at least you have this going for you, and you know, you can go be a programmer, you know, some kind of in some kind of managerial role at a software firm or something like that. And then Decred went like fucking 50x, like everything. It was 2017, man. Like, it was ICO mania, everything was going nuts, and I became a millionaire. I got married. Uh, the next year after that, you know, which is really incredible. You know, I was able to. I still remember selling around a third of my portfolio early 2017 to buy my engagement ring. And I know you just got engaged, but that was a big deal to me. Like, that was my blood, sweat, and tears, and I've been spending probably 10 hours a day on crypto since 2013, 7
Mhm.
days a week. I mean, this job does not stop. It does not sleep. You have to be, and even more so today in 24, like, you have to be, you know, kind of brought up to speed and in the thick of things and really have your finger on the pulse of the industry. And if you don't devote that time to it, you know, people say, you know, oh, you're lucky or this or that. There's certainly like a luck element to it, you know, but there's also a lot of work, a lot of stress, a lot of research, you know, that goes into all this. 2017 was the first time that I'd ever seen real money in my life, and I became a millionaire at the end of 2017. Um, Now 2018 and 2019 is when, you know, I went from being a millionaire and drawing down 80 to 85%, you know, and in the depths of the bear market, of course, you know, you get this new money, and the first thing that was going through my head was, you know, okay, what do I need to do as like a new money guy? And that was like, I don't need to spend any of this money. I need to be, you know, I need to hold on to this money and stay invested. So I didn't, you know, I didn't buy houses, I didn't buy cars, you know, I didn't buy watches, I didn't buy gold, I didn't buy silver, I didn't really take any money out of crypto, you know, except to pay my taxes. 20, you know, the bear market hits, I'm freaking wrecked, and I'm like, okay, I need to like unwreck myself. So you're going to start doing fundamental research. I found this project Ren, which, really sad story, of course. I'm not going to go into it, but it's basically defunct now because of Alameda. I found another project, RSR, Reserve Rights, which is still around and kicking today. And I think actually doing pretty well, maybe $1 billion cap plus even. Really interested in RSR because it had these Peter Thiel connections. And, I thought the stable coins were an interesting use case of crypto, and they're going to do all this stuff with stables. And then Exempt Chain, which ended up being a total fucking scam. And I lost all my money on that. But I was in 3 projects and I really wasn't even that DeFi minded at the time. I just thought these are really good projects. And then, of course, DeFi summer hits. And as these projects were classified as DeFi, I had some early runners in my hands. I've always been a big fan of having or being in these early runners, things that ran early in this cycle, because they give you these amazing opportunities to compound, and move forward and grow your portfolio. Decred was actually an early runner in 2017. So, DeFi summer hits and I, for the first time, like am experiencing this on-chain operation. I still remember the day I had some funds in finance. I still remember the day where I was like, I'm never using a centralized exchange again because Uniswap is fucking awesome. And this is back before anybody had really used AML technology before. Withdraw all my funds from Binance. I'm totally on-chain guy. I'd used Ether, Delta, and things like that before, but anybody that used that will tell you this. That shit was absolute garbage to your user experience. Shit was terrible. I'd used Bancor back in the day, which was kind of like the
Oh, yeah.
first experience with AMMs I had. Of course, Bancor, the problem is that the denominator for all the Bancor pairings was Bancor itself. So, talk about like horrific impermanent loss there. Like it just wasn't a great design in the end. But, Uniswap was cool because it allowed any verse, any pairings, and it kind of really opened this whole like decentralized movement because now all of the sudden anybody can create a coin and the liquidity is just there, and I knew for me that hit me really, really hard because as early or as long as I've been in this game, back in the day in 2014, 2015, the game was accumulate by through spec mining and hope and pray that this thing is listed on an exchange somewhere so you can dump it. But that a lot of times never happened. And of course, there was all these really obscure, sketchy places that you go and you hit the withdrawal button on the exchange and your heart's just skipping a beat. And you're like, please, please, please,
Yeah.
please, have this Bitcoin show up in my wallet. Because sometimes it didn't. No
Yeah, that's still
customer
how, like,
service.
bridges work
Yeah.
too. Like, I bridge something and I'm like, "Please,
Yeah.
please,
Please work. Please work. Please
please
work.
work." Yeah.
But after using and having that Uniswap experience for the first time, like that's where I just like became a fucking Uniswap ape. I was like, this is big technology, and the catalyst for me getting rich again is basically going to be everybody else having this eureka moment that I just had early, as a circumstance of me having early exposure to DeFi itself. And we're just going to catch flows from that. Like we don't need any outside money to come. We just need people to withdraw from centralized exchanges and come check this out. So, we start DeFi summer starts, right? And I didn't have synthetics or Aave or anything like that. But I had a lot of really, really good plays in DeFi summer, some famously bad, of course, like M stable towards the end. I always liked the three arrows bags, because Sue and Kyle always put the pump on the coin. Of course, they ended up destroying the entire industry. Um, but I knew that, if I kind of looked at their projects and bought them, that I was likely to be in something that was going to get exposure and that was going to go up. Of course, I learned a lot in DeFi summer because um, I was still trying to. I didn't understand really at that point in time what made DeFi tick. And even towards the end of it, Chris Stable was one of the last plays I made in DeFi summer. And it happened to be the worst because I did not understand how, the relationship between a DeFi protocol's growth and revenue, inflation and all, how all of that translated into number go up on the token. That was the biggest lesson I learned, I think, DeFi summer. And of course I became a millionaire again through DeFi summer, failed to rotate, ended up negative 80% again at the end of DeFi summer as I watched Bitcoin moon. Everything just got crushed. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter how
This is
good it is.
Q4, right? Q4 2020
This is
when Bitcoin
Q4.
Dom was.
This is Q4 2020. Bitcoin Dom just went
Yeah,
fucking
yeah,
vertical,
I
and
remember that.
I got smoked as I watched Bitcoin going up. So I started thinking to myself, all right, like you are barely a millionaire now, after getting cooked again. Like, yeah, guys, for anybody listening to this, like I've been cooked, like I can count on two hands the amount of times I've gotten cooked. And it's because like
How do you
I
define
do,
cooked?
yeah, like just getting like your portfolio is down 80%. Like that shit happens here. And when you're in that mentality, that go, 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 go mentality, and you've got your foot on the gas, it is a really, really hard and difficult thing to learn when to take your foot off, because you take the foot off your gas, then all of those dreams you had about changing your life or whatever, like it's like it, it's abandoning those, and that drive is what led you to make the money in the first place. So it's really difficult to shift gears. It was for me at least, and I think a lot of other people struggle with that. That's not something I learned until 21, or I guess 2020. No, it was 21 in May. Did really, really well, continuing to kind of find DeFi plays. Of course, I had some amazing plays and some bad plays. First half of 21, I'd run my portfolio close to $10 million at that time. I'd always told myself, if I hit $10 million, I'm going to sell everything. I'm going to buy a house. I'm going to buy, some property and shit, pay my taxes, and I'm just done. I still remember showing my wife my portfolio. We were on the way to the dog park. It was May, sometime maybe early May of 21. And I was at like $8.5 million. I had followed Arthur Zero X into his Bancor trade, which I banged out some big multiples on size on that. And I was feeling myself. I was feeling good. All of a sudden, like China bans Bitcoin or whatever the fuck they did again. And I'm like, I heard the news. And I was like, what the yes, they banned Bitcoin 100 times, like in the blink of an eye, there I was again. I'd lost like 70% of my money. And I told myself, maybe even 80%, I told myself at that moment, this is never going to happen to you again. Because the second you start feeling like you need to show your wife your portfolio because she's going to be so proud, or you start thinking to yourself, I need to get one more 2x, like it's over. Like get the fuck out immediately, know thyself. Um, so at the time, I was like on DYDX. It was really, really early DYDX. And I was leverage trading Ethereum, um, trying to make dollars because I was trying to inch my way back up to where I'd been. I hated myself. I couldn't believe myself. I had my entire future secured. And once again, even at a greater magnitude than ever before, like I just let all this slip through my hands. Um, so I actually, back then, not so much anymore, I was really, really big into on-chain alpha because not a lot of people were doing this. So I was really one of the earliest users of Nansen, really big on wallet snooping, wallet watching. I mean, I had a list of 100 people that I followed, and that was how I found and discovered projects. I'd watch these wallets, and as new things popped up, I started doing some research into them and thinking, what did they see, here that led them to this decision? And one of those wallets I watched was Machi Big Brother. Just because I knew he was well connected and he knew a lot of people in the space. And he may be early to some things. And I saw this coin pop up in Machi's wallet called Spell. And I was like, huh, what the fuck is this? Like, this looks kind of interesting. It Spell was interesting because, it launched and had that kind of initial run up pump and then sold off really heavily after that little first blip. And it went down to, $8 million, $7 million market cap. Um, and I saw, I didn't think too much of it at the time. It was just something that was on my watch list. And then I saw Banteg of Yearn, who is somebody who I think is probably one of the best developers in the space. And does a lot for the space and rarely talks about shitcoins. I mean, maybe has done so 2 or 3 times. Um, I saw him mention that he thought it was cool. And I was like, fuck, like this is something then, and I really need to pay attention to this. So I start taking all the money that I'm making trading on DYDX. I'm not the best trader in the world or leverage trader in the world. It's not really my style. But I was in a heater, I made hundreds of thousands of dollars on DYDX, and I put every single cent I made from DYDX into that coin and ended up being like one of the fourth or fifth largest holders of Spell. at like an $8 million market cap. I'd gone into the Telegram. I met Danielle Sesta at the time. He didn't know who I was. I didn't know who he was. I just thought it was cool after all of the experiences I'd had with founders that this dude was in his Telegram chat talking to whoever the fuck you were, no matter who you were, like you were somebody important to him. And that struck me as, that set him apart in my mind is this guy has like something special about him. These are founder chumps. So, going super hard in spell, I took the rest of my money that I had and, I started thinking about, reading kind of Tetra Notes thesis about the curve wars at the time. And, I got in this big argument. Of course, he ended up being right. I was wrong about this with him, over what's the better play, convex or curve, his exposure to that. I had wrongly believed, and of course I ended up doing just fine, that curve was the better play. And, so because the yield, right? Mid curved again.
The yield, yeah.
I got trapped by the yield, right? Convex at the time or curve at the time had substantially better yield. I was farming like 100% APR, maybe even higher than that on my convex curve position. So I was like, I'm going to park, like 2 million bucks or whatever in convex curve. And curve was at the stone bottom before the curve wars. Um, so my exposure at the time was really mostly convex curve. And then I had spell, which wasn't a huge bag compared to my convex curve bag, but I was one of the top holders. And then of course, like spell ended up being a really innovative product, a product that gives people extreme leverage on very degenerate things during times of extreme market froth is very desirable. And I knew that spell like would be trusted into TVL because it was built by Boring Crypto, who made Bento Box for Sushi Swap. It was really good, really battle tested code, that they tweaked a little bit, for this new project. Of course, Spell ended up going 100x plus, and, a billion plus dollar cap, and I wrote a lot of that and that changed my life. Another thing that I did at the time was I saw Sue and Kyle. This was before AVAX was a thing at all. Nobody gave a fuck about this coin. Um, and bridging was an absolute horror story compared to what it is now. Like the bridging experience to any chain, like if we think now, like you use Stargate, I breathe pretty easy if I use Stargate. I know my money's going to show up. If it doesn't, I know support's going to take care of me. I've only had it not show up one time, and that was 6 months ago, maybe even a year ago, right? And it's never happened again. It's always been reliable. I love Stargate. Maybe not the cheapest bridge, but I trust it dearly. And back then, bridging sucked ass. Okay. Back then was the whole like narrative like of holy shit, everything's happening on Ethereum mainnet. And this place is really expensive to use. So I see Cal Davies, it was actually Cal, not Sue, making a post that AVAX is next up and the ecosystem is going to explode in Fetature on Peril. And I'm like, these guys are going to put the fucking pump on this ecosystem. We start reading about Avalanche Rush and stuff. And my aha moment for that ecosystem was I used the bridge. I remember back then the bridge ore, was a huge meme because
Yeah.
Avalanche had built this amazing bridge using trusted execution environments. And it was fast, it was safe, it was secure, it was just amazing. And I was like, every single person that uses this bridge to come over to Avalanche, and has this faster, cheaper Ethereum experience, this is pre L2s, mind you, um, is going to have the same aha moment. This is going to be big. So, I took whatever was left, in my portfolio and I went over to Avalanche ecosystem and I bought Yield Yak, Trader Joe, uh, Penguin or something like that. A few other
Yeah.
things, and I got
I
in, very early. Yeah.
yeah,
That was
I
a
remember
great
doing
episode.
this, yeah, this 2-hour live stream August 29th, and I think, yeah, it was roughly around here, like $50 of Avalanche. And then obviously, it was already up a lot since then, and most of the frost, like, Wonderland and all that stuff happened
Yeah.
later,
It was at the end.
as all, like, froth happens, in crypto cycles. Yeah, it seems like generally you just fuck around on chain, and then you just have these eureka moments of, oh, like I use Uniswap. Oh, I can definitely see other people using it. So let me just front run all the flows. Same goes for, I guess, bridging to all these ecosystems.
I love
Uh,
trying new things, and that's like some of the biggest alpha. And I don't think enough people try new things. You have to have that experience to have the eureka moment.
so having gone through all these cycles of just pump a lot, showing your wife your portfolio going
Been a
down
roller coaster.
80%, like how do you deal with those emotions? How do you continue to believe in yourself that, hey, like I can do it again, I can do it again? Because I think a lot of people, they face one 80% drawdown and they just leave and then they buy, when Bitcoin's all time at all time
I,
highs again.
I don't have like a specific answer to that question. I think I'm just built different, and like maybe I've got a gambling problem or like something. But I just am I like to call myself a perpetual optimist. Like I always look at the world through a very optimistic lens. And that's a blessing and a curse in many regards. But, even I never quit because I couldn't afford to quit. I knew I had to keep going. I knew I devoted a lot of time to this field to become an expert. And I am truly, truly passionate about what I do and the research I do, the connections I make, um, the projects I buy. I I I love it. So it's the best, comparison or analysis. I know a lot of people have kind of like drawn this conclusion, but Kobe wrote an article a year or two ago, and maybe I've lost track of time. Maybe it was 4 years ago, that crypto is basically just this like big video game. And there's all these different like meta games, within it. You've got the social layer, the market layer, and all these different things. As a gamer my entire life, this was just felt like an extension of that, and I almost like when I got balls deep in crypto, I almost couldn't play video games anymore. And I still can't to this day because I don't want to. I want to do research. I want to, chat with people and I want to meet new people and, I want to find the next big thing. Like this is the game that I love playing. So it's just like through that lens that I view life, the optimistic lens and, my addiction to the game itself. And then also knowing, that like I am a husband and a provider, father now, like that keeps me going. And I really thought after, making it or whatever you want to call it last cycle, because after, when I made it big, really, I was thinking to myself, like, bro, you're gonna owe so much fucking taxes. Like all your fuck ups in the past are gonna look nothing like the fuck up that you're about to like run headfirst into. Like, so you need to like sack the fuck up and man up and grow up right now. And you got this money and you need to have a strategy because you owe Uncle Sam a retarded amount of money, and if you are unable to pay that money, you're going to be that guy that zeros out. A
Mhm.
lot of people have gotten themselves in these negative net worth situations. That was always my biggest fear. Um, so I sold everything, and I still remember, I had like my last. I was trying to push a lot of those capital gains to 22 tax year, just to kind of reduce the burden or impact of it and still have some skin in the game in case the cycle continued. I sold a lot of stuff, all of my convex curve, et cetera. On New Year's, when everybody else was hammered and they were celebrating, oh my God, it's the new year. I was in my computer at like 12:01 a.m., like mashing sell buttons, like it was January 1st. It was time to realize those capital gains. Um, and I pulled like 95% of my money out of crypto in that moment. And I truly did believe at that time that I was never coming back and that it was over. Um, and of course that's not true. Like here I am, just like now
Yeah.
I'm like operating under the assumption that I'm in some capacity, I'm going to be here forever. But it's easier. It's less stressful. I'm not trying to make it anymore. I'm just trying to play the game as best as I can and as honorably as I can,
Yeah.
moving forward. And of course, that's, I'm not Messi anymore. I'm Agent Chud. I'm a private account. I don't, moving forward, I don't want to be an influencer anymore. I don't want to be in the spotlight. I just want to play the game. That's what I love doing. I don't need to be, pseudo famous on the internet, or a niche internet microsite. Like I honestly, for as incredible as it is, like feeling that rush and the power and that dopamine, everything you tweet gets 400 likes and, you're the hero and so many people are thanking you and it feels good to be put on a pedestal. It really, really does. But there's a hero villain boom bust cycle and it's become, known today as being the main character. And if you're good at what you do and you have a very large following, it's inevitable at some point you end up in some capacity in these main character roles, which are always followed by total destruction, and you get like both sides of the coin. You get a period of time where you're that guy. And then there's a period of time after that where everybody's like, I fucking hate you. So I still
Yeah.
remember, like when I left Messi, when I put, left that account behind and I was like, I'm not gonna, be the center of attention anymore. I'm gonna ditch my dopamine addiction. I'm gonna have more time for my family and better for my mental health, etc. Like one of the last things that I did is I wanted to make sure when I left as a hero. So I remember, and of course, the post is long gone now, but I posted like, hey, I told everybody to sell at the top. And I was like, this is my, like grand finale. This is my, final gift. Hey, secure the bag, guys. Like, we've all made a fuck ton of money over the past 2 years. Like, it'd be a shame if you didn't change your real life. You know, peace out. Adios. So it was important to me that I went out as a hero, rather than a villain. And I think in most respects, I did that. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much like the entirety of my, I guess, story in crypto. And of course, it's very abbreviated, and I am long winded, and I can talk about this for a long time because it's been my life every day for so long. But hey, respect to anybody out there, on their grind. Like this shit is not easy, and if you've done well, don't ever let anyone tell you were just lucky. Because the chances are that if you were just lucky, then anybody could do it, right? Anybody could come in here and change their life. Like anybody
Yeah.
could make money in this industry. Like there's so many people that get in this industry and they can't do anything and they lose their money. So there's
Yeah.
that.
And yeah, and the reason I wanted to have you on the channel, I mean, I had you on the channel, I guess 3 years ago, which
Right.
seems like forever ago,
It
is
does.
because you used to do this live stream called the Shitcoin Church, I believe, where you would just chart shitcoins, and, you'd get questions and you'd be like, "Yeah, like, this thing's gonna pump," or "This thing's going to 0." And I think those live streams when I was a retail pleb at the time, I mean, I'm still like a retail pleb, but, uh, like, you really taught me that it's possible that anyone can make it as long as you really believe in yourself and you really try hard enough. And I guess you have to have all these boom and bust cycles where, you believe in your bags, you hold on to your
Yeah.
bags, it goes up 30x, and then because you believe in those bags, it goes down 80%, you're like,
Yeah.
"Fuck."
Yeah.
So just playing the game, understand crypto's a game. If you're a gamer, I think you understand it. But uh, you had, I think in the past podcast, you said, or you discussed this analogy of like being like a bank robber when it comes to crypto hype cycles. Can you kind of explain that to our audience?
It's
And
I'm not the originator of that analogy, first and foremost. I think it was Stillman who was where I heard it from, but I just never heard it described like that. And I thought it was just really fitting to, how this actually is. Like these boom bust cycles are kind of like robbing a bank, right? And when everything's good, like you've walked to the bank has infinite assets and infinite money that you can, take and line your pockets with. The problem is when you are robbing the bank, the silent alarm trips. So the whole game is to take as much as you can and leave before the police show up. Of course, the boldest and bravest bank robbers, you know, are going to leave with the most loot, right? But if you're too bold and too brave and not sensible enough to know when enough is enough and when things have gotten heated, you're going to get busted and you're going to leave with nothing. So I really did like that analogy. We're robbing the bank right now. It's just an analogy for the cycle itself. When is this going to be over? The answer to that is who fucking knows. I mean, every time like the signs of froth are different. And a lot of people see the meme coins pumping and stuff, and they're like, "This shit's almost over. This is the end game." Whatever. But I really do think that signs of like on-chain shenanigans and froth, at least, you know, so far, are more just signs of like internal froth. You know, when we're talking about a new influx of like a shit ton of new retail participants, because people like to talk about retail. I'm retail, you're retail. Everybody watching this is probably retail. I'm talking like straight up new money coming into crypto with a dream. You know, those people aren't going to Solana to, gamble on shit coins and meme coins. Like those people are normies. Like where do they go? They go to Coinbase, they go to Kraken. Most people in the world are mid curvers. What do mid curvers buy? Uh, hey, me too. Like I like to feel good about what I buy. I don't get the meme shit. You call me a mid curver all day. I don't care. Like I'm going to do it my way, and I'm doing pretty good, and I'll continue to do well, right? But what are most people in the world who are mid curvers whose interaction with crypto is going to be on Coinbase or Kraken or Binance or something like that? They buy CEX bags, right? They're the ones that are going to buy the Ripple, the Dogecoin, the ADA, things like that. So I think for true signs of froth, you have to look for stuff like that really, really sending. These on-chain UX is still so fucking bad. Like if you are even on-chain making transactions, you're a pretty advanced user. Like even if you're not using it in any kind of advanced capacity, and later in the cycle, like of course, I think base is going to be an absolute shit show. Like when it really gets down to it, people talk about base season right now. And of course, there's some growth happening on base. There's like inflows, there's some pumps, whatever you want to call like the activity that's going on. Look at degen, like that should make people, millionaires almost overnight.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like you haven't seen anything yet. You haven't seen a situation where like Coinbase has their wallet out and normies are buying on-chain shit. Like that is going to be fucking insane. And that's not here yet. So, the Cubs are on the way, but I don't think they're close yet, you know? Look, we're
Yeah.
not
And
early anymore. Let me be very clear. You are not early, okay? But, you're not late either. There's
yeah. And
somewhere in between.
so while I was collecting audience questions, Mr. Frack here asked, how would you make it this cycle if you were currently sitting on a mid five-figure portfolio? And of course, the size doesn't matter that much. It's more this concept of, there's, I mean, there's a bunch of, thousands of retail watching this probably, and we all want to make it. How would you advise them? Like, what should they do if they
There's
want?
really, I think, two paths to making it. And, one of those paths is you can get in the meme coin trenches. I think that's an honorable path. I think that's the difficult path. I think to be very successful in the meme coin trenches, a lot of times you do have to be an insider. You have to know the right people. You really have to have your finger on the pulse and your ear to the ground. It's very stressful. You go through wild, volatility swings. The tried and true classic way of leveling up from that amount of capital is to find a gem. People say, what do you define as a gem? Does it have to be under $1 million market count? Does it have to be under five? There's no like strict, criteria for, you know, being a gem. When somebody says gem, it essentially just means like something that's undiscovered, something that when polished, will end up being a lot prettier than it looks now. Um, the tried and true way of making it, and in my opinion, the low stress way of making it is to find something that people aren't looking at yet with a low enough market cap to where it doesn't take a lot of capital to pump it, identify why it's going to go up, what are those growth catalysts? What are the narratives that are going to bring attention this way? Because at the end of the day, the numbers go up on anything because more eyeballs are on it, right? But what is going to bring the eyeballs? And go all in,
Go
having a
all in.
yeah, having a diversified portfolio, with a small amount of capital is not a good idea, I don't think, unless, of course, if you're playing the meme coin game, things are different, because at that point you do want the diversification because the idea there is, I'm going to buy 9 meme coins with $1,000 each. Um, or 10 meme coins with $1,000 each. 9 of these are going to zero. And that one is going to be the one that makes up for all the others going to zero. And then which is a different philosophy. It's stressful though, because, it requires a lot of management, attention. You're always boots on the ground. You're always chart watching. It goes up 200%, it goes down 80%. Fuck, is this thing dead? I don't know what's going on here. Whereas I find a gym, maybe it's $8 million cap like Spell. I considered that to be a gym at the time. Of course, I had no idea, like, let's be real, that Spell was going to pump as hard as it did. Like, I'm not this oracle. I didn't foresee that at all. It just happened. Right place in the right time. But find something like that. Be a really good community member. You want to be that guy that's in the Discord and the Telegram helping, when new people come in. The devs aren't always around. The community managers aren't always around, but you can have a lot of knowledge and education on what you've invested in. I think that's always a good idea. And you can be the guy that helps to onboard new people to the community. I always advise working for your backs. So go find a gym that you truly believe in. And that's why I still mid-curve my portfolio. Anything in my portfolio is something I actually have done a lot of research in, and I see a really distinct possibility of it growing. There's a reason I'm in it and I believe it. And the problem is if you don't truly believe in what you're holding, you know, it's very difficult to buy the bottom and sell the top. It's very likely if you buy something, um, you're going to, experience some kind of drawdown, and it might not happen immediately, but it's going to happen. Do you believe in it enough to continue holding it for your grand vision of whatever you bought? That's why I can't buy meme coins, because I don't believe in these meme coins. I can't. And I understand that meme coins have outperformed absolutely everything. Anybody with eyeballs can see that, right? But for me personally, Messi and meme coins doesn't outperform absolutely everything because I would paper hand everything because I do not believe in these bags. Okay. But it's not what I know. It's not what I'm good at. It's not what I'm comfortable with. It's not what I'm familiar with. Stay in your lane. If you are the meme coin guy, and you're doing well, shit, keep doing it, man. Like keep growing, keep learning more, be an expert in your own field. I'm just not that guy. So for me, and especially other people's listening that are still trying to find out what is my identity? What kind of investor am I? That sort of thing. You do what I said, all in a bag, be a good community member, watch it grow, shoot it to the bull cycle. Everything's going to pump, right? If you pick, even okay, you're probably going to make money if you just have the courage to sit on your fucking hands. And you can't do that if you don't believe.
Yeah, and yeah, I really like what you said about, I guess, focus on what you're good at because trading/investing, I think especially on crypto Twitter, CT, there's this masculinity ego type of thing where if you're not holding the top performer that particular week, month, you're like just cucked or something. But you're just battling against yourself, right? Who cares what some random account's doing? Who cares if some person is making crazy gains? As long as you're in your own lane, focused, flourishing, and I guess trying to compound your bags.
People are
That's
so caught up in the social meta game. And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes, you can make here because crypto Twitter is almost like high school, like when you have like the cool kids and the losers over here and the rejects. And like, there's all these different like sects of crypto Twitter. Um, I think people try way too hard to be popular, to be that guy because they've seen other people's posting styles or something. They see this guy getting all this attention and they're kind of like, I want to be that guy. I want that to be me. And look, the social metagame is very important, but the back channel social metagame is much more important. And that's the your boys, who you're doing the research with, who when you have a good idea about something, do you have other guys that know their shit enough to where you can run that good idea by them and they can be like, dude, you are a fucking moron. Like, what did you not see this other angle to it? And you're like, oh, you're kind of right. Like
Mhm.
that is the social metagame you need to focus on. And the biggest alpha ever is finding your crew. Who are you going to be trading with? who are your trading buddies? And then after you find your crew, having an understanding and a code within your crew, a lot of times myself and my crew, we do make the same investments. This. We're in a lot of the same bags. There's an understanding that the person that finds the trade probably has a better entry than you. There's another understanding that once people are in the trade, it's a free for all. We're all in the trade to make money, right? People are going to sell at some point. But the thing is when your friends are in the trade, your exit strategy is a bit different than when your friends aren't in the trade, because if I'm in a bag that a lot of my friends are in, I'm not going to go Hitler the chart, just for the sake of it. I need to be respectful of them and their positions as well. So, I might, dollar cost average out of position or something like that. Find your crew though, and have that understanding and the respect, and you know, don't try when you do find your crew, you really need to make sure that they have a similar mindset and mentality to me or to you. With my crew is all like, we like to laugh, like they're all like mid curvers like me. Like we still do like to, see the fundamentals of the trade. We still do like to do heavy research. We've got guys that are really good at looking at the on-chain stuff still. There's guys that are absolutely crazy good at charting. And while we might not always make the same trades, you do have those similar like mindset kind of people that you can bounce ideas off of. And that's really, really important. If you don't find your own crew, I don't think that you're going to make it ever. You have to have your crew, period.
Yeah. I guess crypto is such a social game, because, I mean, I like to make crypto things too because, "Oh, like, this thing has cash flow, it's
Yeah.
look at this PE ratio, oh my
It's
goodness, it's
awesome.
gonna
It makes
pump."
sense.
Yeah, and, like, it does go up, like, but it doesn't go up as much as these attention coins, like these meme coins. You mentioned finding your own crew, just bouncing ideas off of one another, but just one question, because you've been in the space for over 10 years, who are your investing heroes? Like, what kind of people do you look up to in this space? And, like, what have you learned from the top traders slash investors in crypto?
Uh, of course, I really did look up to Sue and Kyle a lot. Another guy I look up to is Dan from CMS, just because I really do think that he's always been an honest actor in the space. And I just like his vibes, and I like how he approaches things. I don't watch podcasts, I don't listen to a lot of other people. I very strictly beat my own drummer. I don't have a lot of heroes because I'm my own hero. You know, I it is good to learn from other people, right? But everybody needs to have their own swagger and their own style that's derived, solely from themselves. And of course, I've assimilated things, that I've seen over the years and heard from other people. And I'm like, I like that. I need to start doing this. Like the entire way I trade is based on a guy, Brian Beamish, CR investor on Twitter. And of course, he's famous for his little old lady strategy, which is, wait for it, don't laugh, selling half on a double. The idea being that, you know, in this market environment, everything is doubling. Look at the chart setups alone are in many cases enough to double these things. If you sell half on a double, you totally de-risked your position and you could do whatever the fuck you want with the other half because it's impossible for you to lose money. Now, I don't think selling half on a double is a good idea in crypto. And a lot of times I don't do that. So my whole strategy is kind of an adaptation of the CR investor method for the little old lady, where I'm not selling half on a double, but when something is between 3 and 5x, I'm going to start kind of shaving some off. And that's something that Not So Fast and This Is News talked about many, many years ago. And it's referred to as feeding the ducks. Um, you need to get addicted to hitting that red button. People do not know how to sell. They know how to buy, but they don't know how to sell. And selling is very, very difficult compared to buying because you're selling the dreams. But the reality is, the biggest concern that people have when they hit the red button is that I do have this amazing entry. And if this is the one, that trade that is going to define my entire career, and I'm that guy that took profit at 3 to 5x, I couldn't live with myself. But the reality is that if this is the one, this is that career defining trade, which probability suggests it is not, right? Ever. Okay. But if you sell 20, 30% of your bag because you're 3x up and you just get that money out, right? Feels good to pay yourself. And it's the one, you're still going to make it. You still have enough skin in the game to make it. It goes another 3x. I'm going to take 20 more percent out. Okay. If it's still the one and destined to go 100x from there, you still have plenty of bag to make it. But this accounts for the probability that it's not the one, which it never is. So people need to get addicted to the red button. I love selling, it's the best feeling in the world because when you're selling, you're moving, the needle forward. You're making progress, incremental growth of your portfolio. Because my entire strategy is, I have a base, I've got an amazing rotator portfolio and you've got a base and this base might be, 4 bags. It might be 6 bags. It shouldn't, you need to have enough size in these bags to matter. And I'd only do this, once you get to a 6-figure portfolio. But when you start, having whatever run and things, don't just buy random shit. You want to put yourself in a good position for things to run. Um, like for right now, like RWA sector, real world assets is hot. You look at the AI, you look at the memes. So maybe you have a little bit of exposure to every bucket and you have these gems that other people haven't talked about. The chart looks great. The holder distribution looks great. These things have upcoming catalysts. And one day you say, okay, I had this bag in the RWA sector that some big influencers just discovered. And, he's talking about now, this is something I have to be mindful of. I'm not my own built-in marketing engine anymore. I need to think about what things will be discovered, what things will be talked about. Because once again, I said this earlier, at the end of the day, what's going to get the eyeballs, right? And what's going to bring the eyeballs is somebody, important talking about this or noticing it or buying it or something like that. And you've got 1 out of 5 bags that you have, okay, that does this 3x in a day. Well, guess what? If you sell 30% of that bag right then and there, you can now buy a brand new bag, right? That hasn't pumped yet, that is the same initial size of all your other bags. So now you have 6 bags. You use these opportunities and these multiples to spawn new opportunities and bags for yourself. And you continue to do this. And what this actually does is, it gives you broader exposure to everything. The more things that you have, the more compounding opportunities, the more often you're going to be able to do this. Um, it broadens that exposure, but it also reduces your downside risk as well, because you're continuously moving from pump to unpump. Something goes 3x and you don't sell anything. And the next day it turns out that it was just somebody mentioned it in a paid group or something like that. It's 100% retrace. You have nothing to show for it. The chart looks like fucking shit now. So like, what are you going to do? Right? That happens so many different times. Always be selling and don't sell 100% of it. What if you're the chosen one, right? What if you have the next spell in your bag or something like that? You best believe I shaved the fuck out of spell on the way up, but it just kept fucking going up. And I kept taking 20% out here, 10% there, and it kept going up. And I was like, well, fuck, it was plenty for me. And I had been selling this damn thing ever since it was 5x, you know? Well, what if you had held the whole bag all the way up from the bottom where you bought, to the top and you'd sold? Well, guess what? I'd have more fucking money than I do now. Right. But I did just fine. Right. It was okay. Always
Yeah.
be selling.
Yeah. I think your lesson of you have to be addicted to selling, you have to enjoy selling is really important because, yeah, I'm pretty bad at selling. You know, I tend to be a perpetual optimist like you, and if I'm right, I write it up a lot, and it's like great. But if I'm somewhat right or kind of wrong, then I just retrace the entire thing, and I just feel like shit, and I feel like an idiot. And I do like the idea of compounding because pull to poly. We talked to him,
Yep.
and this
Respect
is
them a lot.
true. Yeah, and if you look back at past narratives, because I think in Q3, Q4 of last year, like the biggest pumps were things like Rollbit, Unibot, and things like that. But now no one gives a shit about those bags anymore. It seems like
That was the consensus. You'd mentioned this, a few minutes ago. Like there's this social pressure to be in those 4 bags everyone else is in. It's the consensus make it portfolio. What was the make it portfolio just 6 months ago? It was the Unibot, it was the Rollbit, the incel trade, everybody was locking up their TIA, for months. And is that the current make it portfolio? It's not, right?
yeah, it's always changing. So no, statistically, it's very, very unlikely that an average altcoin just is the 100x. I mean, it could be. So it's good to have that ego, or it's good to not have that ego of, oh, like this is the bag, this is gonna be the chosen one. Have more humility. Enjoy selling. I think people like the average person just doesn't like selling because you are selling the dream, right? When you buy, you're buying the dream. When you sell, you're selling the dream. No one wants to sell the dream,
No.
but just building, I guess, that habit. And maybe like maybe for the average retail, being wrecked, right? Just going all in, getting wrecked is a good lesson. Of course, it's not going to feel great at the time, but if you are going to make it in crypto, you do have to, feel the pain. I felt so much pain
Yeah.
in the past, and it is only after you feel that pain that, you can learn from it. It's easy to read some article or some video saying, "Oh, like, take profits or whatever." But honestly, you just have to get wrecked. And once you get wrecked, you finally learn the lessons.
Always be selling. Look, and I've talked about this before, like, don't always, not, it's not just like always be selling. I've got a watch list with like 40 different things on it that I've already done research on. And I look at that watch list every day. I look at the charts, I look at the developments, look at what's going on. If I were to hit a multiple right now, while we're on stream, I go back to my work PC behind us, I go back to my work PC and I say, oh shit, whatever's up 3x right now. I'm going to shave a little bit off, because it's time to take a little profit on this guy. I know exactly where that money's going to go right now. You need to be planning your next move always. And the thing is, you know, my next move is, it's one coin in a potential list of maybe 40 or so. Um, I know it's going to go to one of those coins. So I'm going to go through all the charts. What is the best opportunity, for me to take this money and rotate to right now that I believe in the most with the best chart and buy them. Always be planning, always have your next move planned. And once again, because the list is 40 coins long, I hit another one. Oh, okay. I'm going to go ahead and pick the next one up. I'm continuously doing that. And when you're moving from pumped to unpumped, you're reducing that downside risk. People, you mentioned earlier, maybe the make it trade is the 100x, right? People don't understand how easy it is to hit 100x with the power of compounding, with a higher probability and lower downside risk, than just being that guy that happens to have the next whiff in his portfolio.
Yeah, because technically, maybe not, if you just imagine a 10x instead of going all in on one coin, having a 10x, you can't technically buy something at a 3x, sell, buy another 3x, and then it's like a 9x, 9x, 10x. At the end of the day, in crypto, it's like the same thing.
All
Uh,
those multiples, they add up like crazy. People don't understand that or realize that, but it's low stress. It's easy. The thing is let's say, and this is why people make fun of me because I don't like buying other people's multiples, but buying other people's multiples is counter to my strategy because the whole idea is that I get the multiples. I buy something without multiples. It's a lot easier for something without multiples in most cases to have multiples than something that already has multiples, without like any kind of drawdown or anything like that. So like if something's already 10x, the problem is now there's a lot of people sitting on 10x profits. There's more potential for selling there, because they get bored maybe because it enters a consolidation phase, or anything like that. If you look at a lot of these trades, like Metis, for example, I was very early on Metis. Um, I didn't get to shave much on Metis because it pumped so fucking hard so fast. But look what's happened for months after that initial pump. It's just gone sideways, right? Is it distribution? Is it accumulation? Who knows? But the thing is after the multiples occur, there's either a chance of downside or a chance of consolidation. Opportunity cost is big here, right? Yeah. The thing went straight up and now it's been sideways, and I have no doubt Menace is probably going to pump more. But the thing is there is that opportunity cost. So yeah, it did went up. Maybe I still believe in it, but at the same time, like I can sell it. I don't have that potential downside of, hey, for some reason the cycle's over, we have a black swan event or whatever. And all these people that are in profit start saying, oh, fuck, maybe I'm going to take this profit, right? Buy something that's low, that's unpumped, that doesn't have all these people, sitting on fat bags of profit, could sell if something were to happen and just wait. Because once again, you get these springy looking bottom out chart setups and it's people want to speculate on that. People come in and buy, you can bang out 2, 3, 4, 5x, and you can start building that larger base and setting yourself up for these compounding opportunities. I don't want to sit in something for 3 months while it consolidates. I want to sell and I want to find something that's going to have the run up and then do its own consolidation. And if I can continue capturing these initial expansion phases, that's the easiest money in crypto.
Yeah. I guess like one question that I have for you is, you've been in this space 11 years. You're mining Earthcoin, complete vaporware. Then you got wrecked on vaporware. You bought vaporware in 2017. You got wrecked in vaporware. You bought vapor. I mean, okay, maybe not vaporware, but uh, I feel like one observation that I made is the longer you are in crypto, the more cynical that people get, and because you have all these things that pump, unpump, go down, etc. Um, how do you remain optimistic in crypto? Do you believe in the space, or do you just view the world or the crypto market as okay? It's a place that I can bang out multiples because I'm just so wired into the space. Um, like, what's your outlook, just like on the space in general?
I think at this point in time, it's obvious that crypto is here to stay. Through previous cycles, people questioned whether it was here to stay. I think the ETFs for Bitcoin kind of cement that this thing's going to be around for a while. And as a byproduct of that, it's going to continue to grow. And of course, it's still very much the Wild West. And permissionless technology is incredible because anybody can do anything, right? But at the same time, when anybody can do anything, it allows the worst of us and the worst actors to do anything. Of course, there's a lot of consequences, that have happened as a byproduct of that. It's good to see, you know, um, government agencies, in a sense, cracking down on some of this. I'm not like totally against. I'm kind of like, well, I like the Wild West. It's really nice, like being able to live in the Wild West as an experienced operator, but it's not so nice for the new people, right? Because they come and they get killed. So it's nice to see more kind of regulatory guardrails and stuff, being set up around this. And I do think that it's going to lead to continued growth of the space and stuff like that. Um, given time, the numbers are going to go up and new stuff's going to be built. And, DEX technology is only going to get better. Like the DEX technology is really interesting because it's T+0 settlement. Instant settlement's a big deal, and people don't realize how big of a deal that is compared to what's going on in traditional finance. Um, I am very cynical, of course, and that cynicism kind of informs my investing decisions. Every cycle, I learn more, and I try to be a better version of myself, and I try to be a better trader. Um, I don't think anything's changed like in that regard. Once again, it's just I try to always learn and know that I'm not perfect. I've made missteps this cycle that I didn't think I was going to make, but I came back. I recovered from that. I pushed forward, adapt as fast as possible. Don't get stuck in a mindset, I think was the biggest lesson I learned from the previous cycle because I got really, because I had this come up on DeFi, I got really trapped in the DeFi echo chamber. Um, and one of my biggest things coming into this cycle was I said, unless it's a really, really good opportunity, because I really do know what makes DeFi tick now. I think DeFi is actually the easiest trade you will ever make. The problem is finding those opportunities. They're difficult to find. Look at one of the top performers this cycle has been Pendle of all things,
I know.
something that back in the day, I had a thesis that fixed rates were going to be a big thing in crypto, hence my exposure to 88 MPH, um, which is probably close to zero at the time, right? And it was a total flunk of a bag. I didn't make any money on that, at the end of the day, wasted my time and anybody else's time that bought it. And Pendle it's a rate swap protocol, right? But Eugen layer happened. And Pendle, basically because of what it was, became this wave points marketplace for Eugen layer. Yeah, it's basically at zero. Things fucking trashed. So yeah, you know, Pendle was, I mean, 88 MPH was cool. That was one of the first DeFi protocols that paid you DAI. You stake your MPH and you got fucking paid dollars, which I thought was cool as shit. I was like, I can stake this, and if it grows, like that's a salary. I can make a lot of income. Hence one of my Ethereum addresses, income. I'm
Yeah,
all about.
Incu.
I do like the income. It's nice to have income, have more money coming in that you can spend and dispose of. But I just got stuck in this DeFi mindset and not knowing kind of at that phase, like really truly what made DeFi tick. All DeFi success stories are growth stories. And these are stories where you find something that's going to get a lot of TVL, and as a byproduct of that TVL, generate a lot of revenue. And it has some method of revenue capture return to the people buying the tokens. Um, right now, for example, I'm dipping my toes into DeFi for better or worse. Let's just say, let's put that disclaimer out there. I've exposed myself to the Fantom ecosystem because uh, for people that don't, I'll give the very fast Fantom story for people that don't know it. There was the main bridge for Fantom called multi-chain. It was not hacked. It was actually really interesting. It's like a government seizure of assets. Some of the key holders were compromised of this bridge, and the Chinese government took all the money, which basically meant that every single stable coin and bridged asset on Fantom became worthless overnight. Totally cooked the ecosystem big time. And they've been doing a lot of work to rebuild it. Okay. Also doing a lot of work to make Fantom better technology, Fantom Sonic. Once again, it's in this narrative bucket. We see things like Monad, SEI. Maybe that's how you pronounce it. I'm not quite sure. But the market has very clearly demonstrated, through Solana, what people want. And that is a very fast, very cheap place to gamble. Okay. And that experience is not possible due to the architecture, the EVM itself, the EVM being the Ethereum virtual machine. That is the back end for optimism, for arbitrism, walls, base, all of these L2s are EVM, correct? So the problem is, you can go in Arbitrum, which is fast as shit, right? But there's still this bottleneck due to the EVM itself.
Yeah,
Arbitrum will never be as fast as Solana, not even close. It will never be as cheap as Solana.
yeah.
Um,
I also feel
fa-
like Arbitrum
yeah,
doesn't really have a culture.
there's
Most
not there.
L2
Yeah,
ecosystems, it's just like an L2.
yeah.
There's
There's
like no culture.
it's e culture,
Yeah,
which
I guess so.
that's all it is. But Phantom is interesting because, like Monad, there's this upcoming kind of class of technologies where we are going to be able to have a Solana-like experience with that familiar EVM tooling and environment that I think a lot of us came up on and really do enjoy and love. I don't have Solana exposure, but I've used it because for research purposes, and I've discreetly bought some meme coins and stuff and not done well, and that doesn't have anything, any bearings like on my Solana experience. My Solana experience was, yo, this thing's cheap, and yo, this thing is fast as a motherfucker. And because of those two things, you're able to do a lot of cool shit on Solana that you can't do on any of the EVM stuff that I really do love. As somebody that came up on that really has a fondness for that experience. So Phantom with their Sonic upgrade is going to provide that, 2000 transaction per second EVM experience. It's going to be like nothing you've ever seen. It's going to be insane fast, insane cheap. I think because Solana has proven that that's exactly what the market wants. There's a lot of room for growth. They've got a canonical USD stablecoin now, which means you've got bridged USDC, in an Ethereum smart contract over to Phantom with the possibility of becoming officially supported because it is in collaboration partnership with Circle itself. Efficient USDC native to Phantom. Having these stable coins set up is an avenue for flows into a chain ecosystem. And I look at the Phantom ecosystem and I say, I want to expose some of the DeFi here, the building blocks, nothing too crazy, nothing too fancy, the dexes, right? Because the dexes are I don't have to be too smart and I don't have to pick winners. Dexes benefit from growth at the chain and the ecosystem and the inflows. They just do. That's the easy DeFi trade, is finding those things and those opportunities where something is going to grow a lot as a byproduct of something else. Um, so I finally kind of dipped my toes. I bought some equal, which is the VE33 DEX on Phantom. Of course, they're solidly as well, but it has a number of issues with it, which led to Andre actually abandoning it totally and being taken over by the community,
This
back in
this
the day. Look at
yeah,
that. It's insane.
this this TVL chart's ridiculous. I remember, I mean, in this initial run up, and I think I bought Phantom in like October, and then I banged out to some crazy multiple, and then I got rugged with Tomb Finance.
Yeah. Harry
That
Yee.
was, yeah,
Harry
Harry
Yay.
A.
Yeah.
I got Harry Aid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I own 0 Phantom exposure aside from whatever I had in last cycle, but yeah, maybe it has a similar setup to the
But
comeback
the
story.
idea though is that, because the TVL and the ecosystem itself is so wrecked, any kind of growth, like everything is priced extremely cheap. Like when we're talking about the DeFi infrastructure, because the TVL of the entire ecosystem is so wrecked. You know, what would you say $1 billion total in TVL is a lot for an ecosystem these days? Not
Not
really,
really.
you know,
Yeah.
but look at where Phantom is now. It's 5 times the TVL. Like, you don't even have to be in this moment where it goes from a little to a lot. You could just be in this moment where it goes from a little to, hey, this ecosystem has recovered, you know, like, and there's something here now. So that's basically like my thesis behind that. And I think that the foundation, Circle, Wormhole, Stargate has a layer 0 USD over there, LZ USDC, you have Axelar USDC there. Reestablishing these rails for inflow into the ecosystem is inevitably going to lead to some degree of ecosystem growth. And if I bet on the AMMs there, um, maybe it grows just some, and the TVL ends up at 500 million or 750 million. I benefit from that directly. Maybe it's beyond my wildest dreams. Like I said, if you watch this episode and for some reason, 4 months from now, the TVL is sitting at $4 billion, I'm not a prophet. I did not foresee that. Let me just be very clear about that. But if that happens, I will benefit tremendously from that ecosystem growth. We'll see what happens. As somebody who, has his roots in DeFi and does enjoy the mid curve, and looking at the PE and the profits and the revenues, it's very rare where you find opportunities to actually benefit from that these days. And of course, like I said, one of the best coins of this whole cycle is Pendle. That's DeFi, right? So, we'll see. We'll see what happens in Phantom. But I'm extremely bullish just because it's exactly what people want, as proven by Solana. And in addition to that, there's this opportunity for massive inflows into the ecosystem itself because these ramps are new and they just weren't there before. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. It's interesting because I feel like if you're on CT, you see people shilling meme coins and Solana and whatever is hot, but the things you like to buy are just wrecked bags that, you know, I mean, you're not really gonna hold it for the dream, but you're like, "Okay, it's wrecked right now, and once it starts to get unwrecked, then I have enough multiples where I can just bang out and,
A
go
lot of
somewhere
things,
else."
and the thing is, if you buy things that haven't gotten this attention yet, you're buying bear market discounts. A lot of these things are still priced as they were relatively in the bear market. Um, I love the built through the bear type stuff, because so people are always so focused on the new stuff. Maybe the old stuff isn't going to pump as hard as the new stuff, but there's a lot less competition with the old stuff. And for the people willing to do the research and find out what is the old stuff, one of my best performers was Dusk. Like we're talking about old stuff. That's old stuff, but it had great narrative fit. They're finally launching their mainnet and all that. Um, okay. So I bought that shit at like 15 cents and nobody was talking about it. And then all of a sudden you've got Larry Fink on TV talking about tokenization of assets and stuff. People are looking for ways to expose to this RWA narrative. Well, look what they fucking bought. Hey, Dusk went up to maybe 66 cents or something like that. I said, hey, this pumped so hard, so fast, like Metis, right? It's not that I don't believe in Metis or Dusk anymore, that this is a wonderful opportunity for me to, I took that initial size of that Dusk bag through this pump. I was able to spawn like maybe 3 or 4 bags equal to my original Dusk size. All things that have their own chance to have their 4 or 5x moment or whatever. So there's so much gold just laying on the ground everywhere. You just have to figure out where it is and to find it. And I'm not saying people love to look at a chart and say, oh, it's super wrecked. I'm going to buy that. And sometimes that's a good idea and sometimes it's not. There has to still be a rhyme and a reason to your actions and what you're purchasing. I wouldn't have bought Dusk if RWA narrative wasn't something people had already spoken about, could be hot. Once again, what's going to get eyeballs? And if they didn't have, in my eyes, the catalyst, mainnet after 5 years is finally going to launch. And I know things always pump into mainnet. It's a sell the news event, of course, every single time without fail. But you always get that catalyst pump. And I knew that those things were going to drive that back up at some point. I just had to buy it cheap and be patient enough and wait for that moment.
Yeah. That's interesting. And I guess I always admire how you adapt to different types of market environments. And one audience question that I wanted to ask here, like what concessions are you making this cycle that he didn't make for the previous cycle? Like generally, like what are your thoughts around how has the game changed? Because every cycle there's like this new meta, different game. You have to adapt. Otherwise, you're not gonna perform that well. What are you seeing in this cycle that you didn't see in the last cycle? And how you're trying to adapt? I guess
I
your
think,
outlook.
yeah, yeah. The question definitely makes sense. I think I've already addressed a lot of that. Through once again, like I talked about how I last cycle a lot. I miss a lot of upside and a lot of different things because I told myself, you are a DeFi guy. That's what you're going to focus on. And by putting myself in that box, it really you know constrained my ability to do well on things that weren't DeFi. This cycle, of course, people are really have this kind of aversion to DeFi because a lot of these DeFi things, especially you start looking at it from a PE perspective and stuff like that, they are price fair. It might have a great chart, but what's the catalyst for growth here? Once again, DeFi is the easiest trade in the world because DeFi pumps as it grows. So I start, this cycle, my main thing was, hey, I want to be a DeFi guy, but at the same time, how is any of this stuff going to grow, especially with the lack of regulatory clarity around DeFi and such? Of course, Coinbase has made some huge strides towards, some good wins for the on-chain industry. And I am bullish on DeFi for the future. I think some of these projects like Aave, given time, are going to end up at significantly higher valuations, especially if, they start turning on fee switches and kind of make these things more uh, accrue more value and stuff like that. But it's it's just being flexible, and not being so fucking stubborn because I'm the most stubborn motherfucker in the world. Once again, like I said, I'm so stubborn that I like to do all of my own research, have my own like original ideas. I like to own everything I do. If I make a bad trade or decision, it's because I was wrong. It's not because I listen to so and so on Twitter and fuck that guy, right? Because I put in the work and for some reason, my work wasn't enough and, my thoughts on this were incorrect. It didn't grow. If this Phantom trade goes, bottom up and I end up losing money in this ecosystem, like I own that. That's me. It's my fault. I was wrong. Okay. And I'm happy to say, that I was wrong. One of the best parts of not being an influencer anymore, or at least, somebody with hundreds, 100,000, 200,000 followers is when you're an influencer and you talk about something, it's very difficult to backtrack and say you were wrong because you put yourself in this echo chamber for your own bag, from the people that bought it. You know, I could say, "Hey, I bought this thing," and now all of a sudden, other people trailed me and tailed me on this. Um, and there's this expectation that I'm going to continue to hold, continue to be bullish on that, continue to believe in it. You know, not being in that position anymore has really given me a lot more flexibility to recognize that I'm wrong earlier and adapt, and pivot faster because there's no there's no bodies anywhere, right? I don't have anybody to be concerned about. You know, if you're following me on a small private account, you know the drill. You know, I fucking told you that, like, hey, I'm out of talk about my trades and shit. You know, I'm not going to cheerlead them. That shit's really annoying to me. I always call people bag cheerleaders because you'll see those people. If I enter a trade, I'm going to say, I bought this shit. Here's my thesis. And I may remind you occasionally that I'm in that trade. But if there is a guy on Twitter, even if he's a really good guy and he's sharp and you follow him and he makes great calls or whatever, but he is reminding you that he's in a certain bag 10 times a day, like, motherfucker, you are exit liquidity. Like, he is trying to use his audience to pump the bag. Um, that's not okay. And I don't think I've ever, been that guy to do that. You see that shit all the fucking time. That shit just really gets on my nerves. So I thought I'd bring it up. Um, but just being very flexible and not being ashamed to say that you're wrong, um, has been, I think, one of the biggest changes to my style and myself. You have to put your pride in the rear view, you know, mirror because if you let your pride get in the way, you're not going to perform, as well as you could have. You have to be able to say, I was wrong. And saying you were wrong is a very admirable thing, actually, because every single person in the world can identify with that. Everyone as a human at some point, even what people consider, and even myself to consider to be some of the best traders on Twitter, like right now, there's been times where Ansem was wrong. There's times where Hisaka is wrong. Um, everybody is wrong at some point. Just own it. It's normal.
Yeah. I guess, like, for me, it's I was talking about, like, the RWA trade, I guess,
Mhm.
like, last year, and I think late last year, I bought, like, Kanto, and I thought I had a pretty good thesis, like, okay, it's, like, the RWA chain, it's gonna be an L2, alright, it's, like, 13 cents, let's go. And then I bought on the way up, I was making these videos, and then at some point, I'm like, "Okay, like, the TVL is not growing, I think I'm wrong." But then it's really hard for me to sell,
How do you
because I've been making
backtrack? You made hours of content about it. You're that guy now. Like, people, it's very difficult to perform optimally because, like, let's say in an alternate reality, you hadn't made those videos, and you still believed as strongly as you do now, but I think it would have been way easier for you, to either say, hey, I'm about 5X now, and I'm kind of bored and I see other shit and I want to take out, I'm going to pursue that. I'm going to
Yeah, just
rotate.
be more casual
It
about it.
Yeah, it just it gives you more flexibility and, to be an operator, rather than an educator. Being an educator is tough. And I view you as an educator, and I'm glad other people, have kind of picked up this mantle and the torch because there's not enough people. There's a lot of people shilling their bags. There's not a lot of people that are talking about, the why, how to form your own thesis on things, and really kind of communicating their mindset, about the way they operate, the way they see things. I think it's pretty rare, and what you do is cool in that regard.
Yeah, thanks. But, like, for the sake of transparency, I ended up selling Kanto at break even. People call me the Jim Cramer of crypto,
Come
because
on.
I made this video on the channel where I was like, "Yeah, like, I got it wrong." And then people were like, "Hey, this reminds me when Jim Cramer cried on CNBC when Meta
Uh,
was, like, at $100, and then
People are
people bought
so
him."
mean, dude. Like,
I know. But at this point, I'm like, "Yeah, like, I embrace the mid curve," you know? Like, I just, like, I love DeFi, I'm a mid curve,
yeah, there's
and I'm
nothing
trying to
wrong with
expand.
that. Yeah, but here's the thing:
Yeah.
that's your lane, that's your specialty, and as long as you're able to be flexible and continue to pivot and continue to learn, like, it's up only just for your own personal growth.
Yeah. So, by the way, thank you for taking the time. I know you're, a busy guy, but a few last questions. If you can just give advice to your younger self, this can be, last cycle or 2017, but just generally, what kind of advice would you give, Messi, like, 5 years ago, let's say?
Mm. That's See that's kind of like a really difficult question to answer because, I am who I am today as as a byproduct of, you
Yeah,
know, all of the wrong turns that I've made, you know? I don't know that I would tell myself anything because who knows, you know, how that would alter the timeline. I don't regret anything. I've been through a lot of amazing moments over the last 10 years, and I've also suffered a lot. If you've ever had that feeling that you're gonna make it and it's so close, you can almost touch it. And making it is so, subjective. Like making it just means that this crypto shit has made a material impact and difference on your life. People think making it means that you have, an Audemars watch now, or a Patek, um, or you drive a Ferrari, you live, in a mansion, or you got a yacht, or you're flying private now. Like that's bullshit. Making it literally just means like you change your life in a way that's meaningful, that you can see. Maybe that's filling your gas tank up. Maybe that's going to the grocery store and you get to the checkout and the lady tells you that'll be $350 and you don't go, fuck, like what am I putting back? Like I do think, while I would just let myself just fuck up and learn as much as possible. And being as stubborn as I am, that's the only way I learn is a lot of fucking up. Um, for anybody else listening to this, like just if you have the opportunity to change your real life, do it. You'll never, ever, ever regret it, ever. And it could be, this as small as I had this $5,000 credit card debt looming over me for, the past 6 months. Wipe it out. Shit feels amazing.
yeah. It's so weird because in crypto, it's really easy to punt a few grand or, even like 10, 20 grand on a shit coin. And it's like, ah, yeah, I can pump and I'll just put money there. But for me, like earlier this week, I went to a Jamba Juice and I spent like $11 on a smoothie. And I was like,
Mm.
fuck, like
Yeah.
$11, it's a fucking piece of
Yeah.
scam. But then here I am, like punting thousands of dollars on
That's
like
gas.
random shit.
That's gas on you've made nut. Like
I know, I know. So I guess trying to connect the real world with crypto. It's like you just sell a bag, buy your family, something nice, see the smiles on their faces, and you're like, yeah, like I feel better about myself.
maybe what you said earlier is just great advice. And I think the spirit of what you said was like you're only competing against yourself. And in order to perform at your best, you really have to get in that mindset and have that mentality. Play the game as well as you can. Don't worry about other people's games. Who gives a fuck what they're doing? You do you and you do it as, to the best of your abilities. Um, and also I've always had a really, really strong work ethic, and work drive and a provider drive. You know, if you do want to succeed here, once again, the people that are the most successful, and I think most would say this, have worked their asses off. I have worked my ass off every day, 7 days a week, no vacation for 10 plus years. Okay. And I'll continue to do so. And we're free time now, and I try to spend time with my family and my daughter. But I work my ass off even to this day to be the best player of this game I can possibly be. You're not going to make it if you don't work your ass off. And if you aren't working your ass off now, the good news for you is there's still time in this cycle for you to start working your ass off. And that means if you don't put in the work, if you don't make the sacrifices, that might mean you're not getting fucked up with your buddies on the weekend anymore. But in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter because you need to start thinking about what your future self in 5 years is going to look back and think of you now, and is he going to appreciate, the things you're doing now and the sacrifices you're making now? Or is he going to be in the same place you're in now and be like, hey, fuck you, dude. If I had just started working my ass off 5 years ago, I'd be in a totally different place than I am now. If you're young and you're listening to this, you could do it, put the party shit behind you, put your fucking video games down, get serious about this. This is work. This can change your life, but it's a lot of work. start working hard.
Yeah, you do have to make a lot of sacrifices, whether it be, I guess, personal joy, relationship with friends, even your loved ones.
Mhm.
Like I recently got engaged, as you mentioned earlier. And I've been with my partner for like 7 years.
Yep.
And like she's had to make sacrifices because I'm just grinding crypto. She thinks it's a scam
Yep.
still, but she's
Dude,
like, okay, like
exact,
I
like,
yeah,
same
yeah,
with me. Exact
yeah.
same.
But she's like, "Hey, like, if you like it, then I want you to keep doing it." She understands that. Um, I guess, like, one question that I had, is, like, how has marriage and family affected your crypto game? Do you feel like you have to be more risk averse, or do you
Yes,
just still think that, "Hey, like, I'm
I
gonna
do.
ape this shit." Okay.
I you know, it's much more difficult to take those and I to be honest, this has made me a better trader, because the things that I'm like kind of have an aversion to now are probably things I shouldn't have been dabbling in the first place, I can't afford to just say, I'm going to take, this money and YOLO it into this fucking thing for shits and giggles. Let's see what happens. Like that pure, like gambling instinct, I'd say has subsided a lot as a byproduct of, not so much marriage. That didn't do too much for me, but fatherhood did. Because I've got somebody that is counting on me for the next, you know, but possibly 40 or 50 years of their life, and I, I can't afford to let her down. That's her money. If I do something stupid, that affects her. I can't let that happen.
Yeah. No, that's cool. You mentioned, like, last cycle, if you made it, you're gonna just fuck off, but obviously you're back. Do you think it's ever possible to walk away from crypto, or do you think we're just, like, stuck in here forever and we're gonna
Maybe,
have
maybe for
perpetual
some
mental
people,
illness?
maybe for some people, but I've got to go ahead and tell you, you are fucked because
I'm
you're
fucked.
you're fucked because
Oh, fuck.
and the same reason I'm fucked because we've already put too much of ourselves into this. This is a big part of your life. It has been for a while. It's a big part of who you are, and you are working your ass off. You'll always carry that with you, and it'll always be a part of who you are. I did take an entire year off when my daughter was born. But I just felt my life was incredible and is incredible. Don't get me wrong. And I am very blessed and thankful that for an entire year, there were actually days where I didn't look at Twitter, where I didn't look at, the charts or know what the fuck was going on. I needed that. It was really nice. But there was an emptiness, in me, a part of me, that was just yearning to get back in the game, and play the game well because I saw that the game was starting again. I was actually really surprised, and I was wrong. Of course, a lot of people I think were wrong about this. At the bottom of last cycle, I legitimately didn't know for the first time ever that this shit was ever going to come back. It was
Was
that
this post
dark.
FTX?
Post
Okay.
FTX, I thought that for the first time, I thought that might be it, and I still remember like I said, I'd taken like almost all my money back at, January or money out January 22. Crypto's a butthole, exit only. Never put
But
money, never put money in crypto, only take money out of crypto. Never, ever, ever put money back in crypto that you have taken out. Once you've taken out, that's real money. Real money does not go in crypto. If you need to get your start in crypto, there's so many opportunities for you to get free money here. Find those opportunities, find the airdrops you can farm, you know, get the free money, gamble with the free money, try to have your come up that way. There's nothing wrong, you want to get, your dick wet a little bit, put a few $100. If you're taking money out, don't put it back in. Okay. But bro, you're stuck here forever. And I truly think, that's why you see guys like Kobe that are still here, which he's not as active as or here in the same forum as he once was years and years ago. But it really is difficult to abandon a part of yourself. Um, has been important to you for so long. It's the same thing as you've got these old dudes that have been engineers their entire life, they retire, and now they're making videos of them putting jet engines on bicycles. Why the fuck are you doing that? Because that's who they are.
Yeah. And I guess, to make it in crypto in the first place, you just have to love it so much that maybe the people that make it in crypto can never leave because it's part of their identity.
I do
Uh,
love it. I really
yeah,
do.
you really do have to love it. Otherwise, I mean, how
There's
how did you survive those 80% down cycles?
After
If you don't
how
have much
can
more?
it's not just the money, but to be in a space that has so much potential for growth, where so much potential for financial freedom and actual changing the world. Like, I'm not saying that that's happening or is going to happen in the next year, but this technology has the potential to change everything and make everyone's lives better. And in that regard, we're still very much early for what could be. And I can't imagine being anywhere else because I mean, this is like the space race, like this is a new frontier, and you get to be there and witness it firsthand. Like, can't imagine being anywhere else or doing anything else.
Yeah, I agree. So, we're almost approaching 2 hours, so I'll try to
Wow.
wrap it up here.
That went quick.
Yeah. The very last question, maybe we can kind of, spend 10, 15, 20 minutes on this if you want. I'm bored, so, I'm free to talk as long as you want. But you mentioned earlier, this interview, that it seems like every single, cycle that we have, people say, "Oh, like that was the last cycle," or "That was the last alt season. We'll never see anything like that again." And in the past, let's say year and a half, definitely feels like that's been, I guess, the sentiment. Oh, like we'll never see. Uh, Last cycle was COVID, free money, zero rate environment. Oh, like we'll never see that again. Do you think we'll see a next crazy alt cycle? Do you think that's still in the cards, or do you think it's going to be more muted and more tame?
I think it's going to be crazy. And I don't know how or why, but I think it will. I think a lot of that has to do with increased access to crypto. And maybe it won't be as crazy as like on the whole as last cycle was, because how do you outcompete hundreds of millions of dollars in helicopter money um, during the Wall Street bets era when everyone in the entire country, United States, decides that they are going to try to be a trader, because you got guys like Dave Portnoy, sports guys say, I need something to fucking do. I'm now uh, a trading streamer. Like, how do you outcompete that energy and that scale? And I'm not sure that that is possible, but it's impossible. I can't predict the future, but I do know that and it'll probably only be, you know, obvious in retrospect. I do know that somehow, some way, the cycle is going to end up crazier than the last. And I think some guys like CL have posted some really interesting um, articles, kind of on like the whole thesis that we've entered this kind of post-apocalyptic, like gambling era to where the wealth gap has grown so much between the haves and the have-nots as a byproduct of rampant printing by governments across the world. Every single person in the world almost is in this position now where the dream of a normal life to where you go work hard, get your college degree, and enter an admirable profession and be the best, whatever you're trying to be, is almost unachievable. And the only way towards, path towards escaping the matrix now is gambling. You know, you have to roll the dice. I think that's very true. And we're seeing a situation now too where in the United States, we're very fortunate. People say it sucks here or whatever, but I disagree with that because the dollar is the strongest currency in the world still. Um, I don't see that trend changing. On a relative basis, US markets, US currency, US everything is in a stronger position than any other country in the entire world. Um, as capital, flees other economies and markets, and as people have more access to, you know, the world's largest casino, right, on chain, I think on chain could grow tremendously, versus where it is now. And of course, on chain growing tremendously leads to DeFi growth as well. You've got to pick the right things and right places. I don't know how, but I mean, as a total, we're going to go higher um, than we did last time, and it'll continue to happen. Now, I don't know if because people are saying this is a left translated cycle because of the intensity of the cycle up to this point. I think is where that theory came from because they can't fathom this intensity continuing and even growing, to what would be traditionally the end of a 4-year liquidity cycle, which would put top, sometime mid to late 2025. Um, how is it possible that we can continue to do what we're doing now for that much longer? And then at the end of this, it's 10 times crazier, 100 times crazier than it is now. Um, I don't agree with the left translated cycle theory um, because of what's going on in the entire world, and because the 4-year cycle has been around for so long, to start all of a sudden theorizing and trying to look for reasons as to why it's no longer valid, I don't know is the move. Um, I think the only thing that I'm thinking could be like kind of a valid, perspective on this would be that because of the ETFs for Bitcoin and surely other ETFs coming inevitably, look at traditional markets over the last 10 years. You want to talk about a super cycle, like that's the definition of up only. It's legitimately up only. And the type of corrections they've had, since the financial crisis in 2008 are the kinds of corrections that we laugh at in crypto. I pray that the worst day the stock market has ever had becomes my worst day in crypto because I won't break a sweat. I'll laugh at that. Is it possible now that with the Bitcoin ETFs and other ETFs, and crypto, the crypto is an asset class becoming a beneficiary of the same passive flows and other factors that have driven traditional markets up only forever? You know, is it possible that crypto becomes just up only forever in that regard? And as a byproduct, you can imagine a low volatility regime where, Bitcoin is essentially up only forever and not having cycles. Can you imagine the amount of growth that we could see in that market climate and all of the accessory markets and the things related to Bitcoin over the next, 3, 4, 5 years? It's impossible. So once again, like strap the fuck in. Like there's going to be road bumps along the way. Um, but there's a lot of opportunity here. The most important thing here for anybody, stop worrying about your upside so much and just play the game well. Playing the game well is worrying about your downside as the most important aspect of your trading. Worry about your risk management. If you take yourself out of the game, you're definitely not going to make it. So going all in on a meme coin because you just had a windfall, you got lucky, you're an overnight millionaire. And now you say, I'm a fucking genius. Now I used to punt $1,000 in meme coins. Now I'm going to buy 10, $100,000 bags and I'm going to be worth $10 million. It's that kind of mindset, that kind of mentality that's really going to fuck you up. Um, recognize your lottery wins. Even I have lottery wins in some instances, and I recognize it. It's not because I'm not smart. It's because I got really fucking lucky. I was in the right place at the right time. Manage that downside. And if you're so great and you turned $1,000 into $1,000,000 doing something, couldn't you do it again? Easily, right? Because you're a genius. Have that kind of mentality. this martingaling and being a retard will, end up getting you fucked. Position sizing is so important. I know we didn't get to talk about that a lot, but be mindful of the amount of liquidity present. It's very fun to paint candles, but if you're painting candles, it's likely you're operating with potentially too much size.
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway from this episode, at least for me, is you have to learn how to enjoy selling because if you're new to crypto, it's your first, second, like whatever it is, it's really like it pains me to sell sometimes, but you just have to enjoy it, you know. Otherwise, you're going to be left holding the bag.
Somebody's going to hold the bag.
Yeah, I guess traditionally it's been me, but this time around, other people will hold the bags.
You're going to be
Hopefully,
a married man, bro. It's time to step
yeah,
up. It's time to hit that red button. Do it for her.
yes. Yeah, for sure. So this was a great conversation. I do have to ask you one thing. So I'm gonna hit you with a surprise on this one, but um, one of my favorite moments last cycle was when I forgot which stream, but you started doing like the
Yeah.
ape dance for like 2 minutes. I mean, you don't have to do it for 2 minutes, but can I can I see? Can the audience see the messy ape dance?
Hey, yes, I guess we'll run it back. All right.
All right, all right.
And it was a bit muted. My wife is
It,
downstairs, and I don't want her to ask me what the fuck is going on up here.
yeah,
You know,
I guess this is what happens when we grow the fuck up.
yeah,
But
we went through the motions.
yeah. Like my fiance actually bought me this for like Christmas. I
I
forget why. I forget why, but I just have this.
it's
So
funny. It's funny. I just got a text message that said, "Stop doing whatever you're doing."
wait, from your wife or?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. I guess that's a good cue to end this. So, anyways,
Really.
thank you, Messi. Any final words, like words of wisdom for our audience? Because they're all
Um,
trying to make it. We're all trying to make it.
no, once again, just worry more about your downside than your upside. You know, don't gamble, don't revenge trade. No matter what, don't quit. And, if you're not working your ass off now, start working your ass off. Make your friends, find that group of people with similar values, similar views that you have, and eh, get at it. Look, it's everything is going to go up in a bull market. Bitcoin is to be looked at as the context of the greater crypto market. As long as Bitcoin continues to be bullish and continues, to have this kind of low volatility regime, you know, figure, be mindful of the opportunities in front of you and don't let it slip. Like, let's say that this is a normal 4-year cycle, which in my opinion is probably the most probable thing that's going to happen because everybody's trying to figure out why it's not, you know, you've got about a year left to make it. And, during this 1 year, can you not just sacrifice everything possible, relationships, your happiness, your sanity, your sleep to change the rest of your life forever? It's not that big of an ask, when you really consider what you can do for yourself. So, if you're not ready to make that commitment, then you're just not built for this.
Got it. Yeah, you have to be built for it, and you have to make sacrifices. I think. All right, cool, Messi. Thank you so much, and hopefully our audience enjoy this. And yeah, have a good one out there.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.